Hello, I'm Karen Hendricks with Celebrate Gettysburg magazine, and today we're exploring just a bit beyond Gettysburg. We are just over the state line in Cascade, Maryland, in order to introduce you to a real-life angel. It is my honor to introduce you to Soolah Hoops, and she is what's known as a trail angel. And so, Soolah, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And tell us what it means to be a trail angel.
So, a trail angel is somebody who is out to help the hikers that come from Georgia up through here, all the way going to Maine, in any way that they can. So sometimes it's driving them and shuttling them. Sometimes it's baking cookies and leaving them on, a spot for them. Water is sometimes crucial.
Yeah.
Or, I have a setup here to host the hikers at my house. So, yeah.
So you're talking about the Appalachian Trail.
Yes.
How do you describe this space that we're sitting in?
It's a mini hostel. I call it my hiker cottage, and it's just one of the spaces that hikers can utilize when they come to stay with me. So
yeah. So you're giving them respite.
Yes.
You are serving as that angel, doing whatever they need, whether it's cookies or a warm shower.
Yeah.
Maybe
Laundry.
Yeah.
Resupply. They have to resupply at times. So, they have to plan out their hike. So they will take, so much food because they don't want a whole pack full of like a grocery store. It's too heavy,
Yeah.
So I'll take them and resupply and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Laundry, shower, make them feel a little bit human again.
Yeah.
So.
I can only imagine how grateful they are to stay here, to get out of the cold or rain or out of a tent for one night. And so tell us about some of the more typical requests that you get from hikers. And then I also want to hear about some of the more unusual things that have been requested of you over the years. Because you've been doing this about more than a dozen years.
Yeah, since 2012 is when I started. So, what are some of the... There's so many different requests. So, not a lot of like specific, because I'm in a good area where, there's a restaurant right down the street, the post office, that's one of them. They'll have like a box that it's called a bounce box, and they put supplies in it, or they'll have somebody like a family member put supplies in it, and they bounce it from one post office to the next. So that's one of the things, is picking up their mail and making sure that they get their resupply stuff, because in there is a whole bunch of different things, could be anything really. So,
and that's vital to them continuing on with their hike on the trail.
Yeah.
And what about some of those more unusual things they may have asked of you over the years?
Oh, last year I had a one hiker, he's a young kid, he wanted to just hold a chicken. So he did. He was so proud of himself. He was just like, they were taking pictures, other hikers were taking pictures. He's like, can I please hold a chicken? I was like, okay, let's see if I can catch one for you, But yeah, that was one of the most unusual.
That is funny.
Another one, because I hula hoop, they'll sometimes pick up the hoops and they'll hula hoop in the yard or whatever. And one of them put on his whole pack, and I have this giant hula hoop. It's like probably 6 to 8 feet in diameter. Like, it's gigantic. And he was hula hooping with his pack on. So
my gosh.
A bunch of silliness, which is wonderful.
That's fun.
Sometimes it's, take them to the airport, because they have like family things that happen, or maybe a wedding was coming up, so they have to go off trail and then come back on, and that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's like taking them, further down than typical. But yeah.
It's fascinating. I guess, you're certainly helping them, but I want to know what you get out of it personally. What does it mean to you personally to be a trail angel?
I feel, let me think. You meet people from all over the world, like truly, and all different backgrounds, races, religions, you name it, like just different things that people are experiencing, in their lives. They may be in a transition, they may be in retirement. I had one guy that came through last year. He had fought in the Afghan war, and he said a lot of hikers are walking the war off. And I was like,
walking the war off.
Yeah. Because they're coming back. And, that just like hit my heart like in such a way. I was like, whoa, that's a big deal, because, they're trying to get back to some kind of semblance of themselves, and they're finding themselves back on that trail, And there's a whole community kind of aspect within being on the trail. So you have that trail community, and it comes here, and then it moves on, and then a new group of people will come, and then they'll move on. So it's a multitude of different experiences. Last year I also had a woman who was they'll track tribal citizens. So she was the first Navajo from the Navajo Nation to come on the trail last year.
Oh, wow.
So she came through. Her name was Navajo Joe, and she came and stayed here with a whole group of other people. And I had that group. The youngest was 11, and the oldest was like 75, and they're all hiking the trail, in some way, shape, or form. So there's a multitude of different things that come up. And
have you ever hiked it?
I just hike little sections because I'm so busy. I didn't do the whole trail because I just have not had the time. And I do a summer camp for kids that I take them hiking, and I'll take them on parts of the trail so that they can experience kind of what the Appalachian Trail is. I'll take them to the Conservancy in Harper's Ferry so they can see how big of a deal it is, and then I show them the different shelters that hikers can stay in, and they're just kind of fascinated. They get to so I get to hike it at points, just little bits of it.
Well, I understand that trail magic isn't the only kind of magic in your life. You mentioned earlier that you are a professional hula hooper. I have to ask, how does one become a professional hula hooper?
I don't know. It just kind of happened. It started in 2008, and then it just kind of grew. And I made my own hula hoops. I still make my own hula hoops, and I'd say by 2010, I started getting like, hey, could you do some classes, or could you perform? And I had started doing fire hula hooping, and so that was like a bigger kickoff. So festivals and events. I have a whole fire troupe out of Frederick called Pyrophoric, and so we perform in different places in the area. But yeah, it just kind of evolved out of nowhere, sort of, and I just love to see people having a good time. Family members can play, which is lovely to see. They see all these different generations, from little kids to grandparents picking up the hula hoops, so it's kind of cool.
You talk about a classic toy. Were you always good at the hula hoop?
I don't remember doing it until 2007, 2008.
Really?
Like literally, I did not have any. I was like on my bike, jumping ramps, climbing trees, and fishing. That was it. I probably tried one once, and then was like, eh. I just kept going with what I did in the woods. I was in the woods a lot. So
you picked it up later in life. That's really fascinating to me. Well, I have to ask you if you can show us some tips, show us some tricks. How do you keep the hula hoop up? That's what I want to know. That's like the eternal question. So we are going to move from the hiker cabin, the hiker cottage here, and we're going to go out in your yard, right? And you're going to try to show us some tips.
I'll try to show you some tips.
Okay. Hello, we are back outside. The cottage is behind us, and Soolah is going to teach us a few tips about hula hooping. So what do we need to know in order to successfully keep that hoop up?
Okay, so first of all, if you're starting, you're going to use a big hoop. This is a size I made in the beginning, and now I'm down to this smaller size. So you can see the difference.
Wow.
So the bigger the hoop, the easier it is to go around when you're first learning.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's that. And then I'll throw that over there. And then they just roll nicely. And then when you start, if you're right-handed, a right-handed person pushes the hoop to the left typically, and a left-handed person pushes the hoop to the right, typically, but not always. Some people are ambidextrous and don't know.
Ooh.
So that's a thing.
Okay. Okay.
But I am right-handed, but I can hoop both directions at this point because I've been doing it for 15 years, something like that.
Okay.
I usually start up high, and then you just give it a straight push, like straight across. Okay. So that's what you do, and then you rock front to back like this.
Okay.
Everybody thinks you go in a circle. You don't. You
don't.
just
rock. Okay.
Yep. And then you can just play.
She makes it look so easy.
All the fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. Aw.
All the things.
Thank you, Soolah, for being such a good sport.
You're
You're
welcome.
obviously very talented.
Thank you.
And so you perform, and where can people find a schedule or learn where you're performing?
On my website, soolahhoops.com.
Okay.
So I'll give you all that detail. Soolah Hoops with 2 O's.
We will put a link in the comments if you'd like to follow Soolah and come see her perform.
Yeah. And I do have a YouTube and all of that, so you can see stuff on there too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you're such a good sport.
Thank you.
You're such an angel. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you for watching. For Celebrate Gettysburg magazine, I'm Karen Hendricks.